right, we are back at it. Hey, everybody.
Good
I
morning.
hope everybody is having a beautiful start to their day. It's about to get a lot better.
It is day 2 of Team Church Conference 2019. Last night was insane.
It was pretty epic. I'm not going to lie. The line around the building gets the blood flowing.
Absolutely.
The people coming in, the energy was off the hook. The band, the laser light show, the pastor.
Yeah, Pastor Brandon was saying, he said, we did the first night of TC19 like most conferences do the last night. So
kind of flipped it.
We're only going up from here.
I hope so.
It's going to be an amazing day.
By the way, I'm Jordan. This is
I'm Rachel.
We're going to be hanging out with you guys for the next couple of days here.
Along with like 170 churches, right? And they're from like 19 states.
19 states,
7 countries.
7 different countries.
People are from here all over the place. You are obviously all over the place, and we want to know where. So pop into the comments, pop in the chat.
Yeah.
Let us know where you're coming from.
Where are you watching from?
Yeah, we'd love to know that.
I want to give a shout out. You said last night, Philippines.
Yeah.
Who else was
and
on the other side?
Okay. Yeah, Philippines, Puerto Princesa, Palawan, they come every year.
That's amazing,
I got to meet up with them last night. Super fun.
Cool.
Canada.
They roll deep.
So deep. Red Deer, Alberta has shown up. Home church. Hey, guys. There are like over 100 of them here. Coastal Church in BC, there's like upwards of 90 of them here.
That's so cool.
Love that.
That's cool.
We were just talking about that too, how it's really cool that people show up in, they have huge numbers, but there's also people that show up maybe just alone, and they get to connect with somebody else here and then walk away with a friend and walk away feeling like family too.
And we like to talk a lot to the teams who are here. Of course, the idea for Team Church is to help move the church forward, right? Help continue to grow, to expand, whatever your vision is. There are times in our lives when you hear no a lot. I mean, and it can get on you, it can weigh on you. And then you come here and it's like, you don't have to listen to those no's. You can hear yeses more and more. You got to filter them out. Here's how you filter that out. Here's how you can walk your daily life and expand tremendously. And I think the chat last night from Pastor Kevin was just like, in the midst of us going through the day-to-day operations, there are times when we can just get, I don't know the term. It's just blah.
Yeah, like fatigued, drained.
And just like you're walking around.
Weary. I think weary is a good word,
And we have to be mindful about keeping the smile on our face.
Absolutely.
Because it is the act of doing that will actually create the happiness and the joy. And so you got to be purposeful with that.
Generosity in our countenance.
Right.
Joy is powerful. That was probably my favorite point.
Yeah.
There's power in joy. But hey, we've got some of our Team Church family here that we want to talk to and share with all of you. We have our friends from Yellowbox.
Guys, come on in. Come on in,
guys.
Here, we'll split. Yeah, you guys go in the middle since you're the beautiful faces.
Yellowbox Oreo here.
How are you?
Good. Doing great. Doing great.
All right. Kevin,
Trace. Yes.
Tell us a little bit, what is Yellowbox? Give us a quick overview.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yellowbox is a nonprofit organization that partners with churches all over the world, all over the country, to help develop creativity in that local church. We think that the local church should be driving creativity. We think that we should really be elevating the level of what we want this experience to be for people that don't know Jesus. And so our heart is that those people get to know Jesus through the message communicated really well. And hopefully we help churches do that through coaching, through resources, through services, all the above.
Yeah, absolutely. We believe that, we're as creatives in the local church, in touch with the Creator. The church should be the most powerful creative force. And so that's our heart, is to help that be the case, to influence culture, to impact change, to change lives, and ultimately, change people's relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
I love that. So one of my personal pet peeves is hearing things like, oh, it's like you play ball well for a girl, or that's really cool for a church.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. We should be setting the temperature in culture.
It's good enough.
Yep.
Raising the bar there. One of my dreams is, I'd say it similarly, you see people that kind of see church as a stepping off to currently I'm working at a church, but hopefully I can get hired on at Adidas, right? And I want people to be like, currently, I'm working at Adidas, but I'm hoping to get hired on at X church. That would be so sick, right?
I think that's a great vision.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have been a part of Team Church for how long?
About 3 years now. Yeah.
And just to give perspective, I mean, we're here in Western Washington. You guys came all the way from Houston?
Yes,
All the way
and
from
the
Houston,
weather
yeah.
here right now, much better.
great.
Last week it was like 104 degrees, so I'll take Washington any day of the week.
Oh, and people might not know that Team Church, yes, it's a conference here once a year, but we also have one days and training camps around the country. These guys have been to more of those than I have. They've been to so many. What's that experience been like for you guys?
It's like family, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. The first time we came to a Team Church conference, we ran into Brandon Stewart at an ARC conference, actually. And he was like, hey, man, you got to come check it out. We're going to, you know, so we started talking. We came, and then we ended up going on these one-day events. And it really feels like family. There's this big piece
completely.
of Team Church network that feels like it's not just a pretend family. It's like
Yeah.
for real, I know you. I know what your struggles are. I know what you're dealing with in your life. I'm here for you, not in just a cliche way.
Yeah,
We're
and-
here to do life together, move church forward together.
It's really insane too, because this is conference, and so there's insane amount of energy here. But these one days are the exact same.
Yeah, the same
Like,
way.
you show up at these one days, and these churches have opened up their homes, and they're bringing the
man.
same amount of energy, and that's super powerful. Yeah.
So if we have a lot of churches right now watching from around the country, maybe even around the globe. If they, are like, oh man, I need help with my creative team, I need vision, how can they contact you guys?
Sure.
So they can go to yellowbox.co.co. You can find us on Instagram at Hello Yellowbox or Facebook at Hello Yellowbox. And just reach out and see what we do. You can see some of the work we've done. There's resources available. There's podcasts. There's articles. There's stuff that could help your team propel and develop creativity.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you guys
for
so much.
coming
Hey,
in.
have fun.
We'll
yes,
see
of
you
course.
around.
Love the stuff. Thank
Have
you.
fun.
Nice to meet you. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the next couple of days, actually.
Those guys are awesome.
That was really cool.
Cool.
The fact that companies will
Exist.
do that to give back.
Absolutely.
Kudos.
Love it. Who do we have next up? Should we bring in?
Okay, we've got a couple other team members standing
Yep.
by. Hi, Troy and April. Come on
Hey,
down.
guys.
How are you guys? Can I give
All right,
hugs? I love
y'all.
hugs.
This
What up, yo?
is
How are you?
Troy-
Here, stand in the
Troy
middle.
and April
Stand in the
Pollock.
middle.
Hi, guys.
Hey, everybody.
They are our legacy team directors here at
Yeah,
Champion
scoot
Center.
to
Come
the right, just
scooch
a little
this
bit.
way towards me.
There we go.
We have name tags. We have name tags. This
I
is
know.
official.
I think this is pretty cool being on the name. I don't have a name tag.
So, real
Not a
quick,
name tag. You're a big deal.
we're going to get started with
okay.
service here real quick, but we want to just sort of inspire some people. Not everybody might look at their legacy, like their legacy givers at their church, as a team. And tell us a little bit of perspective about how we look at that here at Champion Center.
Hey, everybody. First and foremost, I think my parents are watching from Southern
Hi, Mom and
California.
Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad. We love you. Legacy team. So April and I have been a part of this team for about 1.5 years right now. And basically, it's the core of the core financial leaders that believe in moving church forward. Here at Champion Center, we have 3 lanes. We have Next Generation, we have Kingdom Builders, and then also we have our Champion Foundation, where we support about 23 other initiatives in the Seattle land, things like A21 campaign. So the folks here that give above and beyond their tithe, it goes into those buckets, and then we use those funds to help further the church and move that forward.
And how is looking at it as a team, how are we better together as legacy givers?
How are we better together? Well, we can't do this alone. You can't do this alone. So I think team is everything, right? And that's what we're talking about, exploring the DNA of great teams here at Conference. And this legacy team is so strong. They help provide the provision for the vision of the house. I don't know. What do you got to say, babe? Talk about team.
Well, I was just thinking about our legacy offering. It's like a giving party. And so Troy and I, we get to pray about what we want to do above and beyond and give our best. But then we come together as a church, we throw a party, and we get to see what our collective church family can do when everyone gives above and beyond. And that fires us up. And we get to do things like plant our DuPont campus.
Yes.
But how do you? So a lot of churches, it can be difficult to get the members or the people who are attending to give just their tithe. So how do we get a culture to go above and beyond?
Yeah, to
what are
change
some
that
of the methods you guys do to
perspective.
get us excited for the above and beyond giving?
I think you got to communicate. You got to cast vision, right?
Yeah.
And we were part of a great church here that casts vision and talks about all the great things that we're doing, not just inside of these 4 walls, but outside of these 4 walls. Make it plain. We had dollar amounts. We had a goal that was over $1 million this year for our last legacy offering. We made it plain. We casted that vision. We had accountability for that, and people rally behind that. Like, you just make it plain. cast vision, rally people behind it, and people give, man. They want to be a part of it. At the core of who people are, they're generous in nature.
That's true.
And so I think that a lot of churches, maybe you just don't make it plain, and it's kind of scared to talk about, hey, giving because of all the past mistakes. But you just got to go straight on, and we do such a good job about that here at Champion Center.
Our senior pastor, Pastor Kevin, he has this concept called Think 3. So we're thinking not just about our own selves and our own family. We're not even just thinking about our kids. We're thinking 3 generations down the line. And so when you think about thinking 3, you got to leave a legacy. And so it's so much bigger than just yourself.
That's so cool. I was actually just walking through our where our kids are meeting in our church kids conference, and that was where we had youth group as kids. So it was so surreal for me. So thank you for bringing that up because that's awesome.
Hey, you guys are rock stars.
Thanks
we
for
love
joining
you.
us today.
No, you're rock stars.
All right, happy Team Church.
Have fun.
See you guys
Okay,
soon.
bye.
So cool.
Now I'm already thinking like legacy again.
I know.
Can't wait. It'll
I
be here
love
before we know it.
how that team leads with inspiration and not desperation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's such a good perspective to have.
And it's good, being truthful, being authentic, being out in the open and vulnerable as a church, that can get people to connect with you a little more and give financially.
So here at Team Church, we actually have lab sessions for legacy team members. Yeah. We have, so when they break out, that whole team gets to talk and collaborate and learn and move each other forward as well. Hey, Matt.
Okay.
Hi. We got more friends.
One more friend to chat with. How are you?
I'm great. How are y'all?
We're fantastic. Day number 2.
Allie in here. She's trying to avoid the camera.
Do you want to come?
Allie's trying to avoid
Come
the
on.
camera.
Come on. You don't have to.
Just
Right
get in here, girl.
Right here.
All right, we have Matt and Allie
Yes.
Laborde from ARC with us. Guys, happy Team Church.
So good to be here.
It is so good to have
Team
you.
Church is our favorite week of the year. Outside of our conference, of course, but it's so good to be here.
And you guys, how many Team Churches is this for you now?
I think this is 5. I've counted.
Team
5
churches.
conferences. So
What's that relationship like between ARC, Champion Center, other churches around the communities?
it's so much fun. Pastor Kevin recently joined our board and our ARC lead team. So it's been fun to just be around the first few years and just build a lot of friends. First couple times we came, there was 1 or 2 pastors we recognized. And then over the last few years, it's just grown and grown. And then Pastor Kevin and Sheila joined our lead team. He spoke at our conference a couple times. He'll be doing a breakout this year in conference. So it's just fun. This year, I think there's probably 20, 30 ARC pastors here. So it's fun.
So, and for maybe somebody doesn't know what ARC is, how does ARC support the local church?
Yeah, so we're actually a church planting organization. So we help plant churches all across the country. So when couples have a dream in their heart to plant a church, we have a whole process built where they can come, learn. We've planted over almost 850 churches in 19 years. So
Dang,
we've learned a
that's
lot.
amazing.
The heart is to just have a process where people can come along and just learn from people who have gone before them. So
From your perspective, seeing that many churches grow, that must be amazing. Every time you plant a new church, it's like, you know what I mean? Like that's like just getting one is a big deal, but to continue doing what you guys are doing, that's
we
awesome.
try not to take it for granted because we
Right.
see it a
Not at
lot,
all.
but it's pretty special.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yes,
Love
thanks,
you for being
guys.
here.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, enjoy the conference.
So cool. I love
Man.
just seeing family at Team Church Conference.
Me too.
Honestly, and it's exactly what they just said. The first time you come, you meet a few people, keep in touch with them, and then it just builds from there
builds.
as people come year over year.
Well, you were just chatting last night.
Yeah.
You were seeing your youth pastor here and just
Oh,
people
yeah.
from when you were a kid. I'm
Yeah.
like, that is so cool being able
Absolutely.
to just come to a place where you guys just reconnect like that. Mm-hmm. It's like family Thanksgiving.
It is. It's like a big family reunion. I've actually heard so many people say that.
Have they?
Guys,
Yeah,
it's family
that's so true.
reunion. So we would love to have you guys join us at some point.
Definitely.
If you are within driving distance, it is not too late to get here for
Yep.
the night sessions tonight. We're going to
Open.
have and just off the hook
Get here early.
session. Get here early. We also, following our night session, have a late night worship session that our youth team is actually going to be leading, but everybody's invited. We know that youth worship next level, and like
Yeah.
April said, we think 3, so we don't just leave it to them.
Right.
We do it together. We go hard together in worship. We're super excited about that. So
And we're super excited for the day. So, of course, continue to leave comments below. You can ask us questions, and we'll try to relay those if we can get to that a
Yep.
little bit later on. We've got the morning session that's about to kick off, and then we will come back and let you know what's geared up for this evening.
Yep. So worship is going to kick off really soon here. We've got the countdown coming, like in literal
Like 15 seconds.
guys. Like, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm so ready. If you didn't know, just
ready?
a little sneak peek. So the team that you're going to see
I think
worshiping
everybody's ready.
today is actually team members, worship team members from all over. So check it out, guys. Watch these guys worship together. Team Church.
Here we go.
Inside material things. In your life, I now understand that everything I have and everything that I am. Oh, sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough, but that's when love says you're mine. Oh, I'm coming. Come on, I've walked through some pain. Welcome to Team Church.
Church, are you ready to worship this morning? Come on, here we go. Come on, church, can we clap this morning? The night has fallen, and fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost, my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, but you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Come on. Feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Come on, we thank you, God, for your presence in this place today. We thank you that you are here with us now, that you inhabit our praises. And so we reach out to you as one body today. We just love you when we worship you, God. Come on, we sing. Can't go back to the beginning. I can't control what tomorrow will bring, but I know here in the middle is the place where you promised to be. We sing this together today on my mind. Not enough unless you come. Will you
house this morning. He's here to do the work that you are expecting him to do. Can we give him a shout of praise and thank him? Yeah. It's a powerful start to the day. Hope you're ready. Welcome. Good morning, Team Church. How about we do this? How about we find 5 people, give them a high five, look at them and say, this is the best team on the planet.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, welcome back. Day 2.
Day 2.
Team Church Conference.
I just got one question. Did you get what you came for last night? Yeah. Man, it's been good so far. Let's just keep going.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here this morning. We have a packed day for you. We're going to dive right in. Every hour matters today. You are not going to want to miss one thing all the way till we dismiss for the afternoon. So buckle up. Here we go. The first thing I want to do this morning is we have a group of couples who help us lead Team Church, called our directional team. Most of them are sitting right down here. I want to ask you guys to stand to your feet, and I want to recognize them. They help us move Team Church forward. This is you guys as well. And turn around. I want you to see their faces. If you're new to our tribe, especially lead pastors, find these guys. Find them, meet them. Stalk them online. They want to connect with you. Also, I want to thank and recognize ARC for being our partner, not only for this event, but year-round in our mission, moving church forward. Matt and Allie, Pastor Dino, would you stand for a minute? We want to honor you guys and thank you for partnering with us. We love ARC. We are bought in. Thank you for being our partners.
Absolutely. And you know, all things that you need to know about conference, we've put it in digital format for you. We know some of y'all love paper, but man, it's so convenient to open up that phone, click on the app. If you haven't yet downloaded the Champion Center app, please do so, because you'll find all things that you need to know about the app there. In fact, schedules, labs, everything that you need in one spot. We've tried to make it as easy as possible for you this morning. So, okay, you guys ready? We're about to transition to our very first speaker. Now, he really doesn't need an introduction, but he's very deserving of one. He has been my pastor for 21 years. When I left college, wasn't sure what I was going to do, where we were going to go, my husband and I, we found Champion Center. And we have been under the leadership of Pastor Kevin and Pastor Sheila. And I can tell you that the greatest influence in my life outside of my own family upbringing is that man. And I am privileged and honored to have him as my leader, as my pastor, as the best boss I have ever had. So would you join me in standing to your feet and honoring the man that makes Team Church possible?
All right, good morning, everyone. You may be seated. This was, by the way, our Tacoma campus pastor. This campus. And Pastor Nicole was, last night you guys probably noticed it got a little warm. And we're not used to 90-degree days in this part of the country. So I heard about a little conversation that happened last night. Actually, it was between, I thought this was really fun. It was between her and her husband. Her husband is a businessman. And Eric, I don't know if Eric is here this morning. He's probably doing business. Okay, yeah, it's all good reasons, I know. But anyway, he looks over at her last night and he says, "Hey, campus pastor. It's a little warm in here." What are you going to do about it? And she looked back at him and she said, hey, business leader, legacy team, when are you going to pay for it? Adds a whole new definition of the kings and the priests and all that going on. Hey, by the way, I heard that this morning. We're just really getting into, I mean, we've been doing it, but we're really hopefully having more of our business leaders attending the conference from various churches. And I heard this morning they had a great time meeting together. And also tomorrow there's a super session for all of the marketplace leaders, all of the business leaders, all of the legacy team, we call it. You've got your own super session tomorrow as well. And so that's a good example of a dynamic team. When are we going to do this? When you pay for it. All right. Today we're going to talk about the DNA of a great team. You ready to go? No, really. Are you ready to go? We're going to have some fun today. Let's just start by declaring this, that as we talk about DNA, let's begin with our physical DNA. The less visible qualities are your DNA as far as your physical being. And those less visible qualities are what make up the visible qualities of who you are as a person. And so I'm going to just begin with that. Team DNA is the less visible qualities that make up the visible qualities of who you are as a team. So, in the same way that your DNA is created by your mom and dad, team DNA is created by the people on the team. And I want to define what we're talking about at Team Church when we talk about the team. We're not just talking about a paid staff. I want to be really clear about this. So, a lot of churches that are here only have one or two or very few actually paid staff. But whether you're paid staff or whether you get your salary somewhere else, the team that you're a part of gets its DNA from you. Are you with me? So what we carry in us as a team determines who we are and what we produce. When a church is growing and doing great things to reach and serve people, the tendency is for church leaders to rush to the location and go to that church and go to that conference in a search of the how-tos. Like the how-tos of system. Like, how do they do this? What's their system? What's the structure? What's the style? And that's the tendency that we all start with. But over the next 36 hours or so, we're encouraging you to look beyond the programs and the methods and the technology, and we're encouraging you to look into the DNA of great teams. And ask yourself, what is it? Okay, they got great systems, we need it. They got great structure, we need it. But what makes a team unified is what you really want to know. Because you can have great structure, but a house divided against itself will not stand. What makes a team unoffendable? Able to talk straight, shoot straight, not worry about hurting one another's feelings. We got a game we got to play. We got something, a mission that we're on. We can't sit around and deliver everything in a nice, thought-out way. What is it that makes teams unoffendable? What is it that causes teams to dig deep inside themselves when it's go time? Rather than sitting in the bleachers, they're there on the field. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it that causes teams to be collaborative and to actually interact and engage and not all work in their own little world and mindset? You see, we sang some good songs in worship today. And You need great songs, no doubt about it. But having a good song to sing and worship doesn't compensate for a bad spirit on the team. Can we talk? And can I just recommend that you would rather have less talent on your platform with a great spirit than more talent with a bad spirit. Come on, Team Church. Come on, Team Church. Come on, Team Church. We got to get wise. We got to get strong. We got to understand some of these dynamics of how the delivery system works that we're calling the DNA. See, you can know what you want, but you can only produce from who you are. Sorry, you're not going to get two elephants together and get a giraffe. It's not going to happen. You can only deliver or produce from who you are. Jesus said it like this. He said, make the tree good, and its fruit will be good. Make the tree good. Make the tree good. Make the tree good. Work on the tree. Don't look at the bad fruit and go get a spray can and say, I'm going to make the apples golden today. Or assume that you can do something from the outside that makes the fruit better. You got to go inside. You got to go deep. Maybe some of you remember in 2004, the Olympic Games, the USA had like best team ever. People like LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson. Who wouldn't want that lineup? Coached by Larry Brown. And they lost to Argentina. No offense to Argentina, I'm just saying, that ain't supposed to happen. And Larry Brown, coach, actually took ownership, responsibility. When he talked about it, he said, I failed. We had the best team, obviously, maybe in history, but I failed to break through in ways that led these guys and caused these guys to come together as a team. The only way for the team to be better is for individuals on the team to get better. And I'm not just talking about in skill, but I'm talking about in teamwork, in the intangibles. And by the way, maybe you've been serving God a long time, but the fruit of the Spirit hasn't changed. It's still love. It's still joy. It's still peace. It's still long-suffering. Come on. It's still patience. It's still goodness. Can I get a witness from somebody today? The fruit of the Spirit hasn't changed. And I think a lot of times we just forget that. We get going, I've been doing church, doing this, and then we start looking for systems. But you can get the best system on the planet. But if you're not carrying in you the right kind of DNA, the best system on the planet will not help you build God's church. It's kind of like maybe you've watched or noticed a model or even a mannequin that has on certain clothes. And you're like, I like that outfit. I want that outfit. And then you go get it and you put it on. It don't look the same. Really? Yeah? Got some witnesses over here. I think I need a little bit more room in my shirt. Like, okay. Here's some of what we would talk about. Examples of DNA in a great team. The list goes on and on. I just wanted to throw out kind of samples. There's no way we can. We can get on all of them, but I'm trying to help you. We're wanting to really get folks moving in a way that you don't underestimate things like encouragement. And things like levity I talked about last night. Things like passion. Things like generosity. Like our goal right now is to say, God, help us get back to understanding how to walk Christ-like in all of our relationships. And how to do what, in all of your getting, what does Scripture say? Get what? Get wisdom. Yeah, learn the latest and the best systems that you can, but in all you're getting, get what? Get what? Get what? Get what? Get. Here's the one I want to talk about for a few minutes, trust. If you've been on a team where people don't trust each other, then you know how draining and you know how difficult it can be. And on the other hand, it's just the opposite when there's this high level of trust. And let me just say this. You might want to, how do we get trust going? Well, character is what makes trust possible. So on a team, it's not just moral character. When I say character, some people are like, immediately you go to the moral. Am I living right? You know, I don't smoke, I don't chew, I don't learn what folks are doing, and all that. Like, yeah, I'm good. Like, we got our bodies cleaned up, our life cleaned up. I'm not just talking about that. When I'm talking about team DNA, or when I'm talking about character, rather, I'm not just talking about moral character. I'm talking about team character. It's the kind of character on a team that causes others to trust each other. And it causes others, when you carry it, it causes others to trust that you're on board, that you're sold out. I want to know that, and I need to know that as a team leader, is that my team is on board. They are sold out. They're not silent whenever I'm talking about, here's what we do, here's how we do it. They're not silent and staring at me. And then when I challenge them, going, what? I didn't say nothing. Exactly. Silent can be deadly. Silent can be divisive. Silent can say a whole lot more sometimes than words say. So the way you build trust is that your character is not just something that, you know, I heard last week a guy, you guys have heard this before, it's not new humor, but I heard about the guy again, somebody was laughing about her, saying the wife who's told her husband, like, you never tell me that you love me. And he said, well, I told you when I married you. And if that changes, I'll let you know. That's what I'm talking about. It's even in silence sometimes. Teams have to be sold out, eager to serve, speaking up, saying, I'm here for you. What do you need? I'm unoffendable. I'm big on the inside. Talk straight to me. I'm in it for the cause, not the applause. You don't need to always be clapping for me. This is the kind of stuff that develops trust. And last night we introduced our code. And by the way, I think we have a new website, and it's going to be up and available later on, maybe tomorrow. So people were asking last night, how do I get that team code? And it'll be available tomorrow. But we go together, not alone. And we're making this available just to kind of get you guys started if you want stuff like this in your hallways or in your offices. We are undivided. We stand shoulder to shoulder, focus fixed, remembering who our real enemy is. It's not one another. We battle not against flesh and blood. Come on, we battle. We are team church. The enemy wants to stop us, divide us, hold us back. We share the credit in victory and the responsibility in defeat. We are undivided. We let the best idea win. We don't walk out of the room because our idea they're not the one that won. We're convinced that there are better ideas in all of us than in one of us. Talking about team DNA. We abandon smallness. We fight to live big on the inside. We lose our lives in our shared vision. Generous spirits fuel our service. We are undeterred by offense. We go to the table of truth often, refusing to allow personal disagreement to become team division. We starts with me. We are committed to personal spiritual health. We will not effectively lead others until we diligently lead ourselves. We starts with me. We move church forward. We are bought with blood, baptized by fire, and we will stop at nothing to see our communities look like heaven. I promise you, when this kind of stuff gets going on a team, trust will grow. Doubt will be eliminated. You'll start trusting one another like skilled soldiers on a battlefield. I got your back, you got my back. We charge hell with a water pistol if necessary, but we go together. When the character, this is the kind of character that builds the trust. Are you with me? Shout amen. Amen. We go together, we are team church. Secondly, we're selfless. Selfless is another example of what strong team DNA looks like. Successful teams will always put the interest of the team above their own self-interest. I just want to let that marinate a little bit. There are people and a mindset, an idea, and the attitude that's very common today that believes they have to protect themselves from the church. And it's one of the greatest strategies of Satan. That people would use terms like boundaries to not volunteer generously. Our own staff years ago, and you got to deal with this, and you got to face it. I'm just telling all of you who are part of the team, because that is going to get its way in to the church, and then the deterioration in the strength of the church will go straight down. But I remember at one occasion years ago, we had some people on our team that were like, lots of that going on about, well, you know, my family, I'm not going to let my family suffer. And we have to have family time. We have to have family nights. I need a date night. And I remember the first time I just stood up in front of the team, not on a weekend, but the team, people who volunteering and people who were declaring themselves to be on the team, and I said something to the effect of, let me ask everyone, how many nights a week do you need for you? For you and your family to be good. For you and your wife and your marriage to be good. How many do you need to totally unplug, get away, and not be dealing with anything having to do with the church? And what's going on right now is what happened in that room. Everybody got really quiet. I said, anybody want to start with 3 nights? We'll start with 3, because that means there's 4 left. I just think sometimes we forget what we're a part of. I think we forget we're bought with blood. I think we forget the church is God's idea. And I'm calling on church leaders this week, if you haven't been convinced of this. This is an area where you're going to have to get persuaded, or you're not going to be able to build God's church in your community. Because you don't go into building church being half in, sort of in, kind of in. You don't build a church unless you're all in. You got to be all in. And you can't let yourself assume for 1 minute that the church doesn't care about your marriage and doesn't care about your family. And you got to get rid of that lie and get it out of your system. The church and the leaders and the staff care about your marriage. And I'm speaking, I believe, on behalf of every pastor that's represented at this conference. We don't want your marriage to go down. We want it to go up. We want your family to be healthy and strong. But it's not either or, it's both. It's both. Don't create a dumb dichotomy. Family or church, both. And they go together. And what I have found after 35 years, 4 years, something like that, of pastoring, it's amazing I could pastor 34 years and only be 44. That's amazing, but started pretty young. I'm kidding. I'm 60, proud of it. Ow! Ow! So, what I was going to say, I forgot. It's amazing how many people that have been all in over the years whose family is healthy, strong, grounded in the church themselves, serving Jesus, loving Jesus. Somebody shout truth. Say it again, truth. And I can name, I know their names, and I wish I could forget the stories, because it breaks my heart of the families who protected themselves from being involved. They just show up on the weekend, and every time they were approached to volunteer, give, do something, help out, the guards went up. They got into protecting themselves, and I can tell you time after time the heartbreaking story of young people whose friendships were more aligned with their schoolmates, and their social life were more outside the church than in the church, and families who actually, couples who are divorced, lost their kids, kids went sideways, not in the house of God today. And it all started out of a lie, an idea that serving in God's house would hurt them rather than help them. Man, I just wish, like in a moment like this, I wish I could go across the platform on a night like last night. Last night, I think tonight, we'll have mixing of lots of churches. Last night, I think there might have been 1 or 2 out of those 25 people that were not Champion Center team. And we just did all that. And I looked at the platform, I'm like, man, that's so fun. I haven't seen our different campuses and worship teams and all together like this before. And it was fun for me, but if I could have come up here and just froze the frame and went from one to the other and tell you, this one actually grew up here in our church. Their mom and dad were committed and faithful. This one right here is now a pastor in our church. And they grew up here. Mom and dad were committed. This one right here, their mom and dad never missed. They were highly involved. Look where they are right now. They married in the church. They're serving in the church. They're giving in the church. It's real, guys. It's real. I can tell already I'm not going to get through my notes today. But I want to challenge you, if you're, however deep you are, you're here, your pastor invited you or brought you. I just want to tell you right now, This is the first line of offense. This is, and I don't mean being offended. I'm talking about the Bible says that Jesus said, I am building my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. On the front lines, you're going to encounter people who don't get this. And I'm not asking you, don't get mean with them, but take a stand and dig your heels in against the philosophy that the church is the big bad wolf. And getting involved will hurt your family and hurt your future. Dig your heels in. Keep saying, come on. Get your kids here. We're serving together. We're giving together. We're doing together. We are selfless when it comes to the things of God. We are selfless. We are sold out. We are committed to God's house. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added. I done quit teaching, gone to preaching. All right. Calm down. Uncommon commitment. Uncommon commitment. I guess we're talking about that. Leaped over into it with selfless. I heard the story of two brothers. They inherited their family farm. Their mom and dad had passed away, and the two brothers, and one of them's married and one of them's single. And they agreed to just split the profits and the produce and everything straight down the middle. And so that's what they were doing. One of them was married, one of them was single, so the one that was married had a big family. And one night, the single brother got to thinking, he's like, I don't need as much as my brother. He's married, he's got a family. And so he decided he'd have his own way of doing that. And he started leaving the house every night after dark, and he'd take 2 buckets out of his grain silo, and he would carry it over to his brother's grain silo. And he would put what was in his grain silo in his brother's grain silo. Meanwhile, his married brother starts thinking, I have a family. I have a wife. My brother's alone. He's lonely. And I just want to give my brother everything I can. And so he decided after dark every night he's going to go and get 2 buckets of grain out of his silo and carry it over to his brother's silo. And it went on for years until they bumped into one another one night. But the amazing thing is when they were doing that, they didn't lose any ground. They didn't lose any grain. And I want to remind everyone here, when you have uncommon commitment, we serve a God of open heaven. And when you give, it will be given back to you. Uncommon. Everybody say uncommon. Say it again, uncommon. Uncommon. Exceptionalism. Let's make that another one on its own. Exceptionalism is one that I wanted to hit on today because I don't think that, as I study teams and a lot of what I've already talked about today, there's a belief that great teams have that they are not meant to be normal, but they are called to be exceptional. So if you want to know, like, the intangibles, in my mind, one of the ones worth talking about today is that in the DNA of a great team is the belief that they are not meant to be a normal team with normal issues, with normal feelings, with normal strife, with normal pettiness. So you know what goes out? Imagine with me, you know what goes out the window when you arrive at that point is that the comparisons will, I'm no different than anyone else. Everyone has feelings. Everybody who's on a team has that need. Like, we're no different than anybody else. And when you think that way, then you descend into normality. On great teams in the DNA is an exceptionalism. In the minds and the hearts of the team, that they are called to be people of exceptional grace, exceptional courage, exceptional faith, exceptional heart, exceptional vision, exceptional, 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 exceptional. We're not comparing ourselves to the world kind of thinking. We're not comparing ourselves to other churches where we used to go. But we see ourselves like Jesus saw us in advance, as being the light of the world, the salt of the earth. Am I helping anyone? Jesus, imagine staring out at guys who were fishermen and just had normal careers, and staring at them and walking down in front of them, kind of like Braveheart on a stallion. That's how I see it like right now. Up and down in front of them and saying, you, yes you, yes you, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. He wasn't saying you're better than everybody else. He was calling us higher in our ideas about who we are, how we act, how we treat one another, what we say to one another, how we work together. Exceptionalism. Look at this verse, Daniel 6. Daniel distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional, this is like community leaders, province leaders, by his what? By his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over. He was exceptional. He was exceptional. Last one I want to talk about is honor. I think it's the last one. We'll see. Honor. Honor. So when you talk about exceptionalism, you can bump right over into something that's very uncommon in our society. Pop culture today, it has an overwhelming idea that we don't honor. I'm as good as you are. And they interpret that whole notion as being just something that is unnecessary, but not us. Not here. Not in God's house. Pop culture, you see, is filled with sarcasm and cynicism and complaining and blaming. Am I right about that? I mean, from one television network to the next, from one rap artist to the next, from one politician to the next. And even among Christians, unfortunately today, there's that popular dialogue and conversation that is laced with all those things: complaining, cynicism, blaming, speaking out. But when you're called not only to honor, but you're called to exceptionalism, you realize that even though it's the exception in this house, on this team, we still honor up. We honor down. And we honor all around. Come on, we honor when all is going well, and we honor when things are going sideways. We honor in the easy conversation, we still honor in the difficult conversation. Everything's better with honor. Preachers preach better with honor. You want your pastor to preach better? Just honor him. Like stand up and clap when he heads for the platform this weekend. Like, you might be the only one in the room, but start something, get something going. Like my preacher, I love my preacher. I love my man of God. I'm so thankful for my pastor. And it's not just honor up, honor down. Last couple of months, our team has been on the platform speaking. As a pastor, like I coach our church. Hey, when you come and I'm not speaking, that means you yell amen louder. That means you clap more. Like when some of our team is up here and our campus pastors, and like that's the time whenever you just lean into the support and the encouragement, because this is the future. We build each other up. We build each other up. You can stand or sit down, whatever you want to do. I'm almost done, but marriages are better with honor. Am I right about that? Business is better with honor. Am I right about that? Neighborhoods are better with honor. Am I right about that? Church is better with honor. So again, I think the first time I really spoke on honor, and the whole phrase honor up, down, all around came out of me, was probably 10 years ago. And I had it so much in my heart because I was just irritated by what's going on in our world. And I was saying, not in God's house, not with God's people. I'm watching it in our young millennials. I'm watching it in young people, and all they know is what they hear if we don't tell them different. They're not bad, they're not evil, but if the spirit of the world is all they're exposed to, then they don't learn any. So I just started my campaign, like I called it Bringing Honor Back. There you go, that's your series starting this Sunday, all you pastors. Bringing honor back. And I just went on this campaign of bringing honor back. And I talked about the irritation I have when I go to a baseball game, or a national anthem is played. I'm that guy that stands up, and I just who I am, and I am standing there a lot of times thinking, man, come on, America is the greatest nation in the world. It's not perfect, but can we give a little bit of honor? Can we get a little bit of honor going? So I was headed somewhere with it. So I started, in my preaching out and all that, I started noticing it more. Maybe it was there all along, but I started noticing the pushback. And it kind of sounded like this. Yeah, the pastors, some pastors, somebody carries their briefcase or their backpack. That's just silly. Somebody, they carry their own backpack. And I was noticing, I was thinking about that. And I just started observing more about those churches. I'm okay if you have a convincing argument. Like the other day, I'm on another side trail here now already, but the other day in our office, I was getting on to some of my team, and I was saying to my team, like, you did not put the right version of the verse up. Like, I gave you the version I wanted. Don't make your own version. Like, don't change NIV to King James Version. And I'm just kind of doing that, like with 4 of them, and they're looking at me and they're like staring at me. And then I went to my notes. In that same moment, I was going to show them that they were wrong. I went to my notes and I was wrong. And I said, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. So I'm not afraid to tell you if the results were different, but I dare you. Go to a church with that snappy little worrying about serving each other. See, a lot of times we'll serve the down and out, but we won't serve the up and coming. No, really, there's a lot of people that'll wander around on the streets and they'll carry something for somebody, they'll help somebody in need, but they're gonna bow their back and hold their head up and say, nah, we don't do that at church. What? Come on. Honor up. Honor down. I'm okay for you to honor down, but don't just honor down. Honor up too. And your church will be different. And your church will be better. And your church will have a freedom and a liberty. Come on. And an attitude of generosity. If you're not keeping score, if you're not worried about doing something out of your way or uncommon to help somebody, serve somebody, do your best to bless somebody. It's when you start keeping score that you lose some of the most important DNA of a team. And that DNA is honor. Let's be everything God's called us to be. Let's not try to be like the world. Let's not try to imitate the ways of the world. Let's realize we're exceptional. I had a young man in our church recently, the first in 3 generations to actually graduate high school. And I cheered for him. I patted him on the back. You know why? You know why? Because I've heard so many say, well, if you knew where I came from, you would know that my dad didn't, and my uncle didn't, and my grandfather didn't, and then that's the reason for sameness. But he said, you know what? My dad didn't, and my grandpa didn't, but I'm the exception. It starts right here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do something with my life. I'm gonna get through it. All right, Team Church, I love you today. God bless you. I am off my time. No, I'm not. I'm finishing strong, on time. The clock says 1 minute, 25 seconds. Maybe I'll just use it up right now. No, I'm kidding. God bless you guys. I love you.
Come on, Team Church. Can we thank Pastor Kevin for an exceptional, don't worry about it, an exceptional message. Come on, we can do better than that. That was gold this morning. I'm blown away. That was awesome.
Incredible.
That was awesome.
Exceptional. Thank you, Pastor Jedediah. Thank
Hey,
you.
stay standing if you would for just a minute. Like I mentioned, we have a full day planned, and we're going to get to some of that here in just a minute, so hang with us. But I want to mention to you, you received a card on the way in today. Pastor Kevin is releasing a new book. I believe it's next February, called Naked and Unafraid. And we have something special for you today. If you text Team 19 to 97000, you are going to get the first chapter, I believe it is, downloaded to you, as well as, look at this, a 50% discount on bulk orders. I don't know that it will ever be lower than that. We're only spending a moment on this, but this is going to be a game changer. I know what's in this book. It's going to help you. It's going to help your church. You're going to want your small groups and your teams to go through this and be a part of it. So I mentioned on that, Naked and Unafraid. It's going to be great next February.
Incredible. Hey, this week you're going to hear about 3 different missions organizations that are making an incredible impact in 3 very uniquely different lanes. And we feel so honored that they would choose to come alongside us here at Team Church Conference. So here's what I'd love for you to do. If you grab a seat, turn your attention to the screens, because we're going to hear about the amazing work by Compassion International. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Baik, terima kasih. Fungsi papan data anak untuk mengetahui anak-anak yang terdaftar di PPA, berapa seluruhnya, berapa yang dapat sponsor, dan berapa yang belum punya sponsor.
Waktu teman dapat sponsor, saya sakit hati karena tidak dapat sponsor.
Tiap kali dia kasih tahu sama saya bagaimana saya mama, anak-anak yang lain sudah ada sponsor, saya belum dapat. Jadi saya mama berdoa juga, tapi saya tidak pernah dapat mama. Tunggu anak, tidak mungkin. Nanti Tuhan yang atur anak. Saya bilang gitu sama dia.
3-4 bulan ke depan bahwa anak-anak ini akan memiliki sponsor melalui tangan-tangan Tuhan untuk menjamah hati para yang bisa peduli kepada anak. Tuhan akan memberikan yang terbaik buat keluarga ini. Ada sukacita, Asti, keluarganya Asti mendapat sponsor, dan ini surat dari sponsor yang buat Asti. Sekian sponsor.
Boleh Asti buka. Terima kasih banyak bahwa anak saya baik. Saya kasih masuk PPA. Saya hari ini saya bangga sekali, tapi Tuhan yang balas. Saya tidak mampu balas, tapi Tuhan yang balas. Tidak pernah saya mimpi bahwa sponsornya Ati hari ini ada, tapi saya bangga sekali sehingga saya jatuh air mata. Terima kasih banyak, berlimpah-limpah.
Masih senang?
Senang.
Mereka, anak-anak itu merasa dekat dengan sponsornya, dan jadi ketika mereka menceritakan isi surat seperti itu, anak-anak merasa luar biasa bahwa itu tidak bisa dibayangin seperti itu.
Asti, namaku Rini dan aku senang menjadi sponsormu.
Mungkin pikirnya ya sekedar komunikasi saja, tetapi lebih daripada itu, kedekatannya lebih dekat sekali. Dan saya berterima kasih kepada Tuhan yang bisa memberikan sponsor kepada anak sebagai anak dan bapak, dan saya berterima kasih kepada Compassion sebagai jembatan yang dapat menghubungkan yang ada di seberang bisa menjadi satu. Itu kebanggaan saya dan saya merasa senang sekali.
Can you hear me now?
Check.
We were just talking about compassion. Watching that video, sometimes it feels like you are only a drop in the bucket, right? But we can all do something. I love.
That's the key. We can
Right.
do something.
Right. And you might see in the background here, Pastor Nicole's up there talking. She has this great story about how at one of our conferences, she and her daughter were inspired because her daughter always wanted a little sister. But they never had any more babies. And so they adopted a child via Compassion, and now they have a little girl that they sponsor, and that was her way of kind of stepping in. And I just love that. Aaron and I, my husband and I, are actually really inspired to do the same. We have 2 boys, and are good with 2. But
Totally, I get that.
would love to help a little girl somewhere in the world that, wouldn't be helped otherwise.
So there might be a lot of folks who that video sang to you.
Right.
And we are going to be posting information
Mm-hmm.
in the chat section, however you're watching.
Yep.
And that is going to, of course, be in the link. So if you guys are curious about how to get involved, that's what you can find out.
Absolutely. Yep. We've got a whole lot of more things going on today. So want to keep you guys posted on what's happening. So next up, we've got a couple round of what we call labs. And it's where we break out into smaller groups and focus in on certain topics. So our next lab is our senior pastors, our lead pastors, are going to break off, and they're going to be with Dino Rizzo in another room.
Okay.
And cool thing is that we actually get to bring this lab to you guys. We're going to be all together in the auditorium with Pastor Larry Bry from Elevation.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So that's up next.
So you get a sample of what Team Church is all about. So we'll break into labs through midday, different sections. We are fortunate enough to be able to have us all join into this lab that Rachel's talking about. And then after that, we will take a bit of a break while everybody on campus does their labs.
That's right.
And then we come back and do an additional session tonight.
Yes. It's going to be awesome.
Set an alarm.
Yep. Set an alarm, set your reminders now, turn on your notifications. But we'll be back after this app, and we'll remind you of all of this stuff afterwards. So right now we're going to take a little 10-minute break, and we'll be back with Pastor Larry Bray.
Okay, sweet.
There was a lot of good stuff in there. So, hey, we're going to keep the day going here today. I am so excited about this next session and our guests that you're going to hear from in just a couple of minutes. I think it's going to really help you. It's going to be a really, if you want to call it exceptional, see what I did there? Exceptional session today. We're going to call this session Leading Second. And Leading Second is, to us, more than a session, more than a message topic. It's actually a tribe that we are attempting to build, people who want to get it right, serving someone else's vision. What we actually did, Pastor Nicole dismissed us with a lot of decorum. What we actually did was we kicked the lead pastors out. So we want to have some conversations for all of us that hold their arms up and run with them and serve a vision bigger than ourselves. We call it Leading Second. We see Leading Second as being a tribe of uncommon church builders, of uncommon church leaders. So if you're here and you serve a vision bigger than yourself, then you're in. Leading Second is for you, and I'm so glad that you're here today. I want to share a couple things about Leading Second before I bring our guest up. The first thing is that we have several ways you can connect with us. I want to encourage you, first of all, to subscribe to our podcast throughout the year, different seasons of the year. We do a weekly podcast on Thursday mornings. I would love for you to take it, download it, consume it. We bring on some of the best guests we can find to talk about any topic that would be relevant to all of us leading in the second chair. We also have a Facebook forum. We're beginning some online meetups. So plenty of ways for you to connect with our tribe. And I also have a slide I want to put up today on how Leading Second can serve your church. We have a growing arsenal of resources. We'll go there in just a minute, guys. We have a growing arsenal of resources available to you on our website, from online courses you can use with you and your team to coaching groups that we're newly launching or relaunching again this fall. Our video resources on our site, like our podcast, are available to you free of charge. We didn't want something from you. We wanted something for you with Leading Second. And so we've just created a growing arsenal of resources to equip you and your team to go home and faithfully, diligently serve your pastor, run strong in the second chair. Does that sound good to anyone? Like anyone just want to get it right as we serve our pastors? And so anyways, we'd love for you to connect with us. I also want to share with you our Leading Second creed. We can put that back up now, guys. Similar to the Team Church Code, we wrote this when we launched Leading Second. I want to read this to you today, and we're going to give you this on a card on the way out of this session. It says this: I am a Christ follower, called to build the local church. I am a leader serving a vision bigger than myself. I champion the uncommon realm of honor where my pastor's vision is my vision. I own it. My personal success is second to my church's success. I will die to self daily to see the church move forward. I stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before me and surrendered their lives. I will do the same. I will give every ounce of my life to this work with no regard for credit, positions, or titles. I will leverage all of my influence for the cause of Christ to see his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I am an uncommon church builder. I am Leading Second. We can keep that up for just a minute. That statement, it's been edited, but that statement in a very raw form was something that I wrote maybe 12 or 13 years ago when I was sitting in a session, a staff meeting. We had a guest speaker in, and that speaker that day delivered a message that changed my life. It was one of those days where I walked into the room one way and walked out another. Something had shifted. Something had changed. And I'm actually believing that this session is going to be that for someone today. That everything's about to change in your life, that something will shift on the inside of you. So without further ado, would you help me welcome our guest? He is one of the greatest second chair leaders in our nation, in the local church. Will you help me welcome Pastor Larry Bry as he comes to bring the word this morning?
want to honor. I love the fact that Pastor Kevin talked about honor. And honor can't be demanded, it must be given. And if I have to demand it from you, you really don't understand the essence of it. And I love the fact that Pastor Kevin got up here and he talked about it, because it's really easy to be a public success and a private failure. It's really easy to want to win up on the stage but lose off the platform. And as great as a communicator as he is, and he's an amazing communicator, and thank you for putting me after Pastor Kevin, by the way. Thank you, whoever did that. Appreciate that, like setting me up after him. But for as awesome as this was on the stage, what he does off the stage, him and Pastor Sheila, is absolutely phenomenal. Let's take a moment and give honor where honor is due. Scripture actually describes a double portion. And so if that's your normal, maybe do a little bit better than that. Express a double portion of honor. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, you can be seated. I'm going to pray. I give you permission at any point you need to stand back up, to shout, to say amen. I bring you good tidings from the great state of North Carolina, Elevation Church with my pastor, Pastor Stephen, who I think is the best pastor on the planet. And you should say the same thing about your pastor. And you should always say your kids are the cutest too, because you should be biased towards them. And but it is just an honor to be up here to talk about this. I don't know if I agree with what Brandon said about being a good communicator on this. I'm just going to share out of the struggle and the burden and the success that God has allowed me to experience. I want to share it from that place. This is a message that I haven't shared anywhere else. It's something that God put on my spirit about 6 months ago. I didn't know where I would release it. But when Brandon called me and asked me to do this, and Pastor Kevin and Pastor Sheila, I knew this was for you. So God's had this date circled on your calendar for quite some time. As I was flying here, man, I was just picturing your face, and I was asking that God would let me feel the burden you feel, to see what life looks like through your eyes, to experience what it might feel like to sit in your seat, because sometimes you come to conferences like this and they're amazing, but you go home so deflated. And I don't want that to be, if this conference isn't set up like that, but sometimes it can be like that. And I want to give you some practical nuggets. This is not from a senior pastor. I'm not a senior pastor. I serve up underneath a senior pastor. Just like all of you in this room, I'm sharing with my peers here today. And I love the topic of leading second. I love this. This is amazing. And for any of you who have a tendency to lean towards this direction, I want to put some fuel on you. I want to put some gas on you. I want to fan the flames of the gift that God placed inside of you. I am speaking to you, not the lowest common denominator in the room. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to those of you that want to give your life to something bigger than yourself. That's who I'm sent to talk to. Lean in a little bit. But this will be more like, this is not going to be like a visit to the cosmetologist to make you look better. This is more like a visit to the proctologist to actually make you better. It might hurt a little bit. And but I want to speak to the spirit of the armor bearer, of the leading second, because leading second is not a positional, a structure of the position of the organization. It's not an org chart. Right. Yes. Leading second is not about proximity to the pastor. Yeah. It's about a connectedness to his spirit. Jesus says, you honor me with your lips, but your heart is far from me. You can be close to the source, but not really connected to the spirit. And I want to speak to anybody who's connected to a senior leader. And I want to talk about this concept of leading second. And this is something that is expressed all throughout the whole of Scripture. I love that you're basing this whole thing on 1 Samuel 14, Jonathan and his armor bearer. My life verse. Moment of confession here. I have an entire back tattoo of Jonathan and his armor bearer. True story, entire back piece. And because I really feel like that's the calling God has placed upon my life, is to be the armor bearer. And if any of you in this room resonate with that, I'm speaking to you. God sent me from Charlotte to speak to you, because there's something that comes alive when you get up underneath somebody else's vision and you feel like this is it. And this will give words to express what you have felt in your spirit for a long time. That's what I want to release today. And it starts with a guy named Jonathan, who's at a point where he's watched his father just throw away the kingdom because of all the wickedness he's doing. And he's watching his dad and saying it can't go down like this. And he's emotionally defeated. And he is down, but he's not out. And he looks around. He said, I don't need an entire army. I just need one person. And he picks somebody who's been following him, somebody who knows his spirit, and said, let's go overthrow those uncircumcised fellows. Old Testament smack talk, just uncircumcised fellows. And he says, let's go. And he doesn't give this rah-rah speech. He's like, perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Is the best I can give you, man, is perhaps. I don't know. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or few, but perhaps the Lord will act. Will you move on to perhaps? The spirit of the armor bearer, the spirit of the leading second will always move on to perhaps. They're not looking for certainty. They're looking for a perhaps. I don't know how it's going to work out. This might not work out. These two guys roll over, and the sign that they're supposed to overthrow those Philistines is like, hey, you and me, if they call us to come up, that's our sign that God has given them into our hands. Stupid. 30 grown men at the top of a hill with swords and spears, and all we have is one sword. You've got nothing. Let's go, buddy. Let's climb up the hill. But there's something about going up versus coming down. You got that pattern established. It was also established with Moses. They had just crossed into the promised land. The Amalekites set this scheme to overthrow them and withhold from them and to take them over. And Moses is like, hey, Joshua, get some of the best men, go down in the valley. I'm going to go up. I want to talk about this contrast of going up and going down. He says, I'm going to go up, but I'm not going up alone. I need to bring along an Aaron and a Hur with me. God, you read the text, Exodus 17. God didn't tell him to go up. He just knew he was supposed to. There's something about going up that God's going to bless. He goes up, and then he holds his hands up. And you know the story. You guys preach the Bible better than I could. As long as his hands were lifted, they were winning. When his hands started to fall, the enemies were winning. Okay, but so what do I need? I need an Aaron and I need a Hur. We all like to be Moses. Because proximity, you don't need. Connectedness to the Spirit, you do. Because Joshua's down in the battle. Some of you are Joshuas. Your hands are fighting on the battlefield. Some of you are Aaron's and Hers, and they're directly connected to the senior leader. All of them are second share leaders. Proximity does not determine second share. It's a spirit. But Aaron and Hur recognize that if his hands fall down, we all fail. Let me say that again, because if I'm only looking to my own interests, as we just heard from Pastor Kevin, we all lose. And you're putting up a lot of great individual stats, but the team score, we're getting run up. So Aaron and Hur like, hey, let me actually put a rock underneath you so you can sit. Can you create a space that would allow your senior leader to just sit down? I'm exhausted, man. I'm holding my arms up and I can't do it. And I got human strength, but that comes to an end. And when that's gone, I got nothing else. Some of you are in that space today. And he didn't ask for a rock. Aaron and Hur gave it to him. And it created a safe space for him to just sit down because he was weary. Jonathan was weary emotionally. Moses was weary physically. It says, one on his right, one on his left. They held his arms up, and they were steady, it says. Steady. That's the spirit of leading second. Can I create a space that does that? That's a couple Old Testament stories. I want to actually jump in and talk about David today. I want to talk about David from 1 Samuel chapter 21. And here's where I really want to get into. I want to speak to the concept of the exhaustion today. I want to speak and encourage anybody that's feeling like the flame that you have is barely a flicker and it's about to go out. The devil is a liar. God is about to fan into flame something that he placed inside of you. He's about to restore what the enemy has stolen from you. And I resonate so much with David. This dude is just whacked, and I love him because I relate to him. He's incredible. The scene I want to speak from is 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 15 through 17. To give a little context, this is about 3 years before the end, or 4 years before the end of David's life. He's seen a lot. He's done a lot. He's been through a lot. He's had a lot of battles. He's seen a lot of things. He's made a lot of bad choices that have had a lot of consequences for a lot of God's people, yet he was still a man after God's own heart. I love that. It speaks to it. And it says in 2 Samuel 21:15, it says, once again, look at your neighbor, say, once again, I don't know if what you're facing this will be the last time you have to face it. There are no guarantees that if you pop in 3 quarters and say 3 Hail Marys, you'll never face this battle again. Once again. And when you sign up to sit in the second chair, what do you sign up for? Once again. Once again. Once again. David's been doing this his whole life. Once again, there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. The arch enemy of nation Israel, the Philistines. They plagued nation Israel their entire existence. It was the bane of Saul's existence. And now David inherited this same enemy. Some enemies you're facing, you didn't introduce it into your life. It was the generation that went before you and has been passed on to you. It does not need to go on to the next generation. God has given you the ability to defeat that thing finally so that it doesn't be passed on. Once again, battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck down the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying, never again will you go out with us to battle so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. The goal of exhaustion is to bring about your extinction. I'm going to speak on the subject of exhaustion. Here's the title that I want to speak to, though, is 7 things that may be exhausting your pastor. Thank you. I'll take one person saying that. Hallelujah. Now, this next part we get into, I might not hear a lot of applause. And I'm okay with that. My success today is determined by my faithfulness to deliver what God placed in my spirit. I will trust him with the results in you. Because if you look at the context of this story, David is king over all of Israel. And it's just funny. Once again, battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down. Here's the first thing that I pull from the text that may be exhausting your pastor. And nobody told me to speak on this subject, by the way. There was not an email or a text that said, would you tell them? Nope. If this hits you, all scriptures, God-breathed, profitable for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. You should be encouraged by this because you're doing better than you think. You should be challenged by this because there's some areas you straight suck in. Is it okay if I say that? The application of what you do with this determines the destiny of your ministries. I believe this is a turning point, as Brandon said earlier. Number 1, here's the things that may be exhausting your pastor. Number 1, are you causing them to come down? Are you causing them to come down? Moses is up on the mountain meeting with God, and he's got to go down off the mountain, take off his glory to deal with their humanity. Every time we force our leaders to come down, because David is king of Israel, and it says he came down with his soldiers to fight in a battle. David, you're old. You should not be out there fighting hand-to-hand combat, buddy. You should be somewhere else. And every time I drop a ball, every time I make a mistake, every time I force him to deal with my humanity, I force them to come down and deal with things that they don't have to. Are you causing your pastor to come down? Every time they have to manage around your emotions, you're making them come down. I know, make eye contact with me if they're sitting next to you. It's okay. Could you have a conversation with your team that doesn't even have your senior pastor in the room? that now takes these 7 things and puts it out on the table. And you start with, let me tell you how this pierced my spirit. And then you create this honest dialogue at the table. But are you forcing them to come down because they're having to manage their emotions? Second thing, are you circling back to the same pattern? Once again, the original language suggests the term roundabout. It's like, okay, we defeated the Philistines. We're doing good now. Oh, gosh, another battle with the Philistines? Whew, okay, all right, beat them now, gonna come back. Okay, now, yeah, oh. Man, I thought I kicked that thing in my past, and now it's standing in my future. I'm not talking about mistakes. I'm talking about issues that somebody else might not even know about. I'm talking about the deceptive schemes of the evil one that force a lie of leadership upon you. Here's the lie of leadership for some of you. You are identified, tapped on the shoulder as a middle schooler, and somebody says, you're gonna be a leader one day, but you're struggling with a thought and a feeling, and you don't even know what to do with it. But now I'm a leader in the youth ministry. I can't tell anybody. It'll get better when I get older. But now you're a senior in high school. And now you're leading in the youth ministry. And now you certainly can't tell anybody, because if you do, they'll pull you out of ministry. It'll get better when I go to college. It'll get better when I get married. You're kicking the can down the road, and now you're 45 and you have a moral failure. It did not start at 45, it started at 14. That's the lie of leadership. Your commitment to your calling is your willingness to invite somebody into that struggle. God loves you so much, He will eventually expose it. And He will always cover what you expose. But what you leave covered, He will always expose. So, do you find yourself returning to those patterns? I know you can't even write it on your paper because you don't want your wife to see it next to you. Again, that's where I'm getting right into it, guys. I want to see you be so powerfully used by the Word of God and by Him, and you will forfeit more territory than the devil will ever steal from you. Are you circling back? And some of you are struggling with it this morning. And I wanted you to know that God sent me to encourage you. Say, that doesn't disqualify you. I can use that. All of that can be made right in my hands. But you can't fight it in your own strength, because you can't hold your arms up long enough. They're eventually going to drop. Is this encouraging you yet? Number 3, are you forcing them to fight with the wrong weapon? Because we all know the story. We identified David and Goliath. His entrance onto the scene of the world stage begins as a teenager, 14-year-old boy delivering a cheese pizza to his brothers, and now he sees this giant taunting nation Israel. He's like, what's up with that? That's a bunch of bunk. And he becomes indignant. But also what's really cool about the story, if you go back and read the text, he gets way too much credit for being this righteous guy. He begins the whole conversation. So, hey, what's in it for me? What will be done for the man who slays that guy? Hey, you're going to get no taxes. You're going to get a lot of money. You're going to get to marry his daughter. Basically a millennial's dream right there. And he's like, cool. How dare you defile the gods? God can use unhealthy motivations to get you to the right destination. God can use all of that stuff. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have it all right, but you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving towards the promises of God. But David enters the scene and he's like, I know how I am strategically strong. Every senior leader that you serve up under has got a weapon that is powerful. For David, it was a sling and a rock. Hits him in the head, knocks him over, goes, takes his sword, cuts off his head, and holds it up like Chucky the doll. It's amazing. That's what makes you unique, makes you powerful. What is the unique thumbprint upon your pastor's life? What is the unique weapon that God has placed inside of them? And our job, as Pastor Kevin so eloquently said, is to multiply him, not us. What is the weapon of your ministry? What is the weapon of your senior leader? And when we start forcing them to use different weapons, we all lose the battle. Check out the scene here. David's 4 years from the end of his life. And it says he goes down with his troops to fight the Philistines. You know what he's fighting with at this point? A sword. He's an old man. And he's got all the willingness. He still has his ability, but he's using the wrong weapon. Why are you being effective in what you're doing? Not because of your willingness, not because of your ability, but you're fighting with the wrong weapon. You got the wrong instrument in your hand. You got to understand what makes you unique, makes you powerful. It's interesting. The text goes to note that when David is fighting Goliath, his bronze spearhead weighed 600 shekels, 15 pounds. The size of the spearhead showed you how big that joker was. This is like the WWE belt. The bigger the belt, the bigger the champion. Goliath is the biggest belt there ever was. That dude is a beast, 15 pounds. He's fighting this guy, Ishbi-Benob. You know what his bronze spearhead weighed? 7.5 pounds. How can David defeat twice the giant and let lose to somebody who's half the size? It's because he's fighting with the wrong weapon. And if you do not interpret the struggle, you will lose the battle. David at this point is feeling like, I can't do this any longer. I'm going to get beat. And it says he becomes exhausted. That exhausted that says, I don't know if I can do this any longer. That exhausted that says, I can't take this anymore. My child has run wild. And I feel like such a fraud standing in the role I do in the church. Because a good Christian doesn't have their kids go wild. Some of you in this room feeling so exhausted. You identify with David. You know what it's like to be fighting with something that you're losing and you know it's not working. Didn't mean that David wasn't called. It just means that he needed to fight with a different weapon. I command you, under the power of the Holy Spirit living inside of you, to start remembering what makes you unique. What makes you unique makes you powerful. What's the weapon of your ministry? So nothing wrong with the sword. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's a good instrument to use in a battle. It just wasn't the weapon that David needed to use. Number 4. Are you leaving them exposed? Are you leaving them exposed? David should have never been down in this battle to start with. And what happens in a ministry is there's a spirit and there's a structure, system. There's a spirit and there's a system. And what happens in most ministries, if the spirit is the weapon, you force the senior leader to live behind systems. And I would venture to guess that one of the major tensions your senior leaders feel is they don't feel like they're flowing in the truest version of themselves because there's a system in place that's forcing them to fight with a different weapon. And we create a structure that says, you fill in the blanks what I need to be successful in my role. And the whole thing gets flipped on itself. And rather than us holding his arms up, he's running around to all these different people trying to hold their arms up. And when you do that, when we do that, we leave them exposed. He should have never been fighting that battle. They should have been smart enough and in a sane moment, they'd have been like, get out of here. But they were so caught up in their own exhaustion, they didn't see his. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, says he had a new sword created for the situation. Do you know who this guy is? He's actually Goliath's brother. This is a revenge mission that had been in motion for more than 40 years. This joker, I believe, was standing on the battle lines when David goes out to fight Goliath. If you read the next few verses, there's 4 giants that are killed in this next few verses. When David went to fight Goliath, how many stones did he pick up? 5. How many did he use? What about the other 4? Because these giants have been there from the beginning. And your pastor has defeated a giant in the past that if we're not on the wall and fighting and doing what God has called us to do, there's going to be a revenge mission that's going to try to come back around and take them out. And when we don't see it, we leave them exposed. And too many senior leaders are getting picked off because we're leaving them exposed. You start the ministry, Pastor, we're praying for you. That was the greatest message ever. It was incredible. 6 months goes by. That's a good word, Pastor. A year goes by. Man, what's happening in the parking lot? Honor can't be demanded, it must be given. And your pastors desperately need you speaking into their lives, not just saying you have their back, but actually having their back. Are you bringing them all kinds of problems without solutions? Do they need to hear about every person in the church that's pissed off? I mean, really? You just turn into a gossip factory. And all you're doing is spewing gossip, and you just think, well, I'm telling them like it. And no, you're not. Can you solve some problems and I never even have to hear about it? Oh, but the insecure leader wants somebody to notice what I did, so, hey, here's what I did. No, like, do you really? Like, really? I want to make sure I tell you so you know I did that, right? Yeah. Now we're a bunch of middle schoolers in the lunchroom. Again, if this doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. But are you leaving them exposed? Who would have let David fight this giant by himself? Like, how does that happen? They're all fighting together. Can't leave them exposed. Number 5, are you overlooking division in your ministry? It's one of those that you sometimes become so familiar with stuff, you just stop noticing it. And early on, you'd be so sensitive to language and words and tone and inflection, what people are saying and what they're not saying, that after a while of tolerating it, you're just condoning it. Now it becomes the overarching atmosphere of the organization. And as you think about it, is the Holy Spirit speaking to you at a spirit level about how you may be overlooking those things in your ministry? That's somebody else's job to deal with that. Like, hey, you don't call me on my misses, I won't call you on yours. So we get this little treaty going on, like, hey, you won't tell me about my mistakes and I won't tell you about yours. So it's like, we're cool, right? And that just creates division and disunity. There's a difference between the Boy Scouts and the Marine Corps. Boy Scouts, both of them are a group with a common purpose. The Boy Scouts go into the woods on the weekend, set up their tent and roast marshmallows and sleep in the tent, and then they're farting in the tent, and little Billy's like, Joey, stop farting, and Dad, come in here. Tell Joey to quit farting. Dad comes in, Joey, you know you shouldn't flatulate, so please don't do that. And then they pack up their tent, and they go back to what's important on Monday. And for most people in the church, it's a weekend activity that they go back to the priority on Monday. We're really just a bunch of Boy Scouts. And do you always need to call Dad into the tent to deal with the disunity and the division? Because if you're a Marine, because a Boy Scout, it's a weekend activity. A Marine, it's a lifestyle. One is what you do, one is who you are. You got to decide fundamentally which are you. Because the Marine is sent into the fiercest battles. The Marine is the one that pierces the enemy lines to take land so that we can all move forward. Many of us talk like we want that, but we actually go back to our little tent. And a Marine isn't what you do, it's who you are. And if one of the people in the platoon is out of line and they're not holding their water and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they don't need to call drill instructor Bill, can you come on in? No, they meet him at his bunk at like 2 a.m. and they beat the tar out of him. Why? Because we're only as strong as our weakest link. And we are in a real battle where there's real casualties. Life and death is real. Heaven and hell are real. And we need to quit treating the church like it's a Boy Scout troop and start acting like we are Marines. Start acting like we're in the army of God. Start acting like what we do matters. Start taking ownership at the level that God has blessed you. It's the spirit of leading second. Maybe in your notes, and if you're not taking notes, it tells me what I need to know about your level of leadership. I'm sorry if that was too close for you. I'm serious. Your senior leaders need to see you. It's called grab a pen test. If you become so comfortable with their voice that you're not getting a new revelation writing something down, you are not in the seat that God has called you to be in. Unless you've got it all figured out, it's cool. Number 6, does your calling come with conditions? Go ahead, do all that you have in mind. I'm with you heart and soul, unless it's not in a certain income range. Go ahead, do all that you have in mind, unless it's not that job title. I could do that, but I feel as though my gifts could be used better elsewhere. Go ahead, do all that you have in mind. Oh, but you want me to serve in a role that it might look like I'm actually being demoted. And the very correction that God wants to bring in your life is through this vehicle. And what you have done time and time and time and time again is every time you come to the crux of the development, you walk away from it and you blame other people. And you start using spiritual language like, I just feel as though the Lord is leading me a different direction. Really? And you know that you do it. And I know that I do it. But it's the very thing that God wants to use to develop you. I said this on the podcast. Can I use that same? Is it okay if I do that? Okay, Brandon gave me permission. If this is outside of line, you blame Brandon. I think most worship leaders are prostitutes. Let me explain. Not all. You notice I did not say all. What is a prostitute? Someone who sells themselves for someone else's pleasure. You are paying me for my services to tickle your ear. It is the bride of Christ. And every time we start selling our goods for somebody else's pleasure, whoever will pay my dime will get my services. That sounds like you're pimping out the bride of Christ. That sounds like you're taking the thing Jesus died for and trying to use it for your personal gain. Who owns your calling, you or the church? Who owns it? Does your calling come with conditions? Are you the kind of leader that your pastor needs to actually think about, would they actually do that if I asked them? They might not do that. I double dog dare some of you to have the honest conversation with your senior leader, giving them permission for complete honesty. Are there any reservations about anything you'd ever ask me to do that you think I might not do it? If you want to see the fullness of Christ in your life, you'll live at that level of exploration. Does your calling come with conditions? Since we launched Elevation Church almost 14 years ago, I am now in my 13th job title. When we signed up at Elevation Church, I was like, Pastor Stephen, go ahead, do all that you have in mind. I'm with you heart and soul. That's why I got this big tattoo on my back. And I said, my calling doesn't come with conditions. If you think I can be strategically used in a different place within the organization, place me there. It is easy to line up with the vision as long as you're getting your way. I really only know you're all in until you don't get your way. It's the only way I can ever really know. It's the only way I can ever really know you're here for the vision. It's easy to come for a program. It's easy to come for a person. It's easy to come for a position. But I'm talking about the vision. I will clean toilets if you need. No, you don't mean that. Shut up. Just wasteless words because you don't mean it in your spirit. Can you examine to the depth of your foundations, does my calling come with conditions? Of those 13 job titles I've had at Elevation Church, some of them were things I loved, exactly what I would have wanted. There were a couple of them that, if I'm really honest, there was one of them that year 2 of our ministry. And I want to be real honest with you because I just don't want to stand up here and just pontificate points. I really hope to encourage some of you that feel like you're in a season where you need somebody to fan the flames of what's going on inside of you. Year 2 of our ministry, we're a very aggressive, like punch you in the face kind of ministry. And I can be like a bulldog, like just like run you over, like you either love me or you hate me. And so I didn't have a whole lot of people skills when we started the ministry. And there was a term in our church called "you got LB'd." It has a very different connotation today than it did 10 plus years ago. But what was happening is I was so focused on getting noticed through results, relationships were secondary, and I was using people as a means to an end. And Pastor Stephen had to sit me down. Say, like, LB, I love you, but your weaknesses have become liabilities, and I can't let those be exposed anymore in the ministry. And he removed me from lead staff, removed the authority I had. And it was the hardest season I ever went through at a professional level. And there were parts of my spirit that I wanted to be like, but do you know how hard I've worked and how much I've sacrificed? My wife and I sold her house and quit our jobs. Just like we all say. And I just felt God speaking into my spirit, said the very thing I want to bring into your life can only come through this door. And if you escape the discipline, you don't gain the development. And I submitted to my pastor and I said, I trust you. Do you trust your pastor enough to say, whether you promote me or demote me, I'm not going anywhere? I said, I'm here, not for a job, not for a paycheck, but because I gotta be here. I can't go anywhere else. I'm so glad that season, God allowed me to humble myself, because now, because of that, I'm a better dad. My kids love the church. If that oppressive dad would have been living like that in the home, my kids would hate it. But the very development God wanted to bring in came wrapped in a package I would have never picked. And your conditions often are the wrapping paper on the present. You're missing the gift on the inside because you don't like what it looks like on the outside. Does your calling come with conditions? I love the statement, with you, heart and soul. Seasons are easy to say that, and some are harder to say that. That's why Jonathan didn't have 40 men climbing the hill with him. He just needed one. That's why Moses had Aaron and Hur and Joshua. That's why David here now has one of his mighty men come to his aid in his most desperate moment and covers him and says, I need to get you out of this. And the seventh thing I wanted to speak over you is, are you exhausted? Are you tired? You're working a full-time job. You're being a full-time mom. You're giving your life full-time to this ministry, and you don't feel like you're winning in any of them. You're exhausted. That battle you thought was in your past keeps bouncing into your present. You don't feel like you'll ever get past it. Are you exhausted? Last year was probably one of the worst years of my life, 2018. I was suffering from a pretty significant back condition. I was losing feeling and strength in my legs, so they had to do like a 7-hour surgery on my back, put in rods and plates and remove a bunch of bones so that the spinal cord could be released. And I ended up spending a week in the hospital. And when you're in pain, it's just you don't feel like it's ever going to change. And then I finally came home, but then I had to go back to the emergency room because everything just stopped moving. And I was in a medical emergency. They had to intubate me, and now I have to spend another week in the hospital. Like, really, God? Like, really? Like, one thing after the other. It's like wave after wave. Like, God, can I ever get my head above the water? And it's just another wave. Like, some of you are sitting and can I just get my head above water? And then I finally get out of the hospital again, and then they're like, hey, you got this really bad infection now in the incision in your back, and it's all the way down into the bones. So we need to do another surgery. I've never struggled with depression, but God gave me a gift wrapped in depression. And I remember sitting in the hospital like, I just want to die, God. Like, and in that place, you're like, man, I started imagining my daughters walking down the aisle without their dad, and I'm just like, I was so exhausted. I had to have 2 more surgeries this last year, and then my dad dies. And I'm so exhausted. And then I thought about Moses and how he needed a place to sit. That's why I love my pastor in my church. Because he created a space for me just to sit and say, I'm exhausted. And allow some people to hold my arms up. And some of you so desperately want to hold the arms up of your senior pastor, but you can't hold your arms up yourself, and you're so exhausted. I can feel it. It's a spirit of exhaustion. That's this dark cloud of depression that you don't think will ever dissipate. It's this fog that's persistently been there forever, and you're just trying to fake it till you make it, but you realize I ain't gonna make it. I'm talking about that level of exhaustion. Just stand to your feet. Stand to your feet all over the auditorium. We covered a bunch of ways that might be making our senior leaders, our senior pastors exhausted. But I want to have a ministry time right now for you. This is for you. I'm speaking if this is for 2 people in the room that are dealing with a level of exhaustion. You're like, I don't think I can keep doing this. I'm speaking to you. God wanted my voice to penetrate the darkness, to come into your life in a way that says there is hope. But power came when their hands went up. You have to go up to get victory. You cannot stay down and expect to win the battle. And an unnamed enemy will never be defeated. Would you close your eyes? This is your moment of ministry. This is a time for anybody who's dealing with exhaustion. And I want to give you an opportunity to respond in a way that says, I need some help. I know where my help comes from. But God, I can't keep doing it in my own strength and in my own power. I want you to respond. Nobody's looking. This is your moment. If you're exhausted, just raise your hands. If that's you, you're exhausted. Barely enough strength to even raise that arm. Exhausted. Father, precious are your saints. As a child stretches out their arms to a loving father, we come to you. Abba, Father, we need you. We need you now more than ever. I need you in my home. I need you in my marriage. I need you in my kids' lives. We need you in our churches. But God, these saints of yours, these precious sons and daughters, they're exhausted. God, and we know relief must come. They want to do it. They just don't know if they can keep doing it. I pray for fresh wind. I pray for fresh fire. I pray that an anointed would rise up. Springs of living water would raise up from the floor, start filling the soles of their feet, and it would fill them right now, Lord. Bring anointing on them. bring healing over their life. But God, bring power, bring strength, bring courage. I thank you for these people who identified that they're exhausted, who are at the end of themselves. But God, it is at the place when we are at the end of ourselves that we find the beginning of things we didn't even know were possible. And as we raise our hands, it's simultaneously a sign of surrender. But God, it's also a sign of victory. Thank you that it's already been won in the person of Jesus. I pray for extravagant, extraordinary strength for someone to name the enemy that's intimidating them. I pray that they would have the courage with their teams later today or tonight or right now before they leave this auditorium to name the enemy, that they would no longer fight that battle in isolation, but they would invite others into the struggle. They need an Aaron, they need a Hur. We need each other, God. We want to hold our pastors' arms up. We want to lift them high because we know that as their hands are lifted, the battle is won on the plains. But God, these sons and daughters, these ambassadors of the good news of Jesus, are anointed to see. I pray anointing over their eyes to see what can only be seen in the spiritual realm. I pray anointing over their ears that it would be tuned to the frequency of heaven. And the intimidating voice of the enemy would be blotted out and they would hear your voice above all others. I declare it over them. I declare that their hands are anointed, that whatever it touches, it must prosper. I declare that their feet are anointed, that wherever it would tread, it is their land. It is their inheritance. It is their promise. God, we love you. We celebrate like a people that believe it has already happened. We love you. We worship you. We honor you, Jesus. Come on, give him your best shout. Give him your best praise.
Can we thank Pastor Larry Bry for a very encouraging, just what we needed session. Stay standing if you will, and we'll dismiss you in just a minute. I'm so encouraging. Thank you for being obedient. Thank you for saying what needed to be said. We're all going to be better because of it today, in Jesus' name. Amen. And I wanted to mention one more thing I left out earlier. Up in our Leading Second pop-up, I'd love for you to stop by there during one of the breaks or lunchtime. We're kicking off a campaign on social media right now we're calling I Am With You. And that's out of 1 Samuel 14:7. Jonathan's armor bearer saying, go ahead, do all that's in your heart. I am with you, heart and soul. Why don't you go up, take a picture, tag your pastor, honor them a little bit. What if we just made that like a statement we can make online? Say, I am with you, I'm for you, I'm going to run with you, I'm going to run strong for you. Will you just help us make some noise on that? And let's reclaim the voice on that. Also, go buy up a bunch of merch. It's going to help us fuel that mission to get this message out. Father, we love you so much. Pastor Nicole.
Okay, nobody move yet. I'm gonna do this in 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Here we go. We are all hungry because we've been in church all morning, and nothing makes you hungrier than sitting.
Incredible session.
Yeah, I know, right? I think this is a good reminder too for like not only in the church life that we represent, but like in just our everyday walk, to just encourage each other.
Right.
I mean, there are so many times that those weights of life get put on our shoulders, and so if you could just continue to encourage people, it just helps you like, yeah, you're right, I got this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't do ministry alone.
Right, that is so important.
Check on your friend that's always okay.
So important.
Right, we're here for one another. We are team church. And don't count yourself out of those challenges that LB and Brandon just gave too. You can let your pastor know that you are with them, heart and soul, right where you're at. Absolutely.
You got this.
Absolutely.
All right, so moving forward,
yes,
we are going to be continuing on a few more sessions locally at the campus here in Western Washington and Tacoma.
Got all sorts of labs going on this afternoon. Another general session with Pastor Dino Rizzo.
Right.
If you're curious about the kind of different labs that are here at Team Church Conference, we're going to throw a slide up for you. Just if you
They're pretty fun. Q&As, intimate, intimate settings.
Yeah, for sure.
All of that.
Lunches provided by one of our sponsors, which is great. So we're just all going to be hanging out here. So we're going to take a break from TC Live for a little bit, but we're going to be back tonight.
We still have a lot more people to hear from.
So, yeah.
Right?
We still have to hear from Pastor Stephen Furtick this week,
Yep.
Dr. Darius Daniels. We're
back.
it's going to be awesome.
I'm excited.
So tonight we're back with everybody at 6:45.
Yes, set a reminder.
p.m. Pacific time, y'all. So yeah, set those reminders.
Yeah, so we'll be live streaming then at that time, and you guys, of course, we'd love to have you join us then. Continue to comment in the section below if you have any questions. We've got a team standing by reading those as well.
And your prayer requests.
And your prayer requests. That's a big one.
Absolutely.
Yes,
We'd love to pray with you, agree with you in prayer wherever you're at.
Yes.
So we will see you again at 6:45 Pacific.
Have a great day.